Do you ever have the quiet, persistent feeling that you're out of step with the world? That while everyone else seems to be following a map, you're navigating by a different star. This feeling isn't a flaw. In fact, according to the profound philosophy of Alan Watts, it might be the very opposite. He spent his life putting this intuition into words, suggesting that while many of us are sleepwalking through a dream of social convention, some are beginning to stir awake. Today, we're exploring 7 signs that you think differently from everyone else. This isn't about being smarter or better. It's about a fundamental shift in how you perceive reality itself. Sign number 1. You see the world as a process, not a collection of things. The first and perhaps most profound sign that you perceive reality differently is a subtle but powerful shift in your perception of the world itself. Most of us are taught from a young age to see the universe as a collection of separate, static objects. A rock is a rock. A tree is a tree. You are you, a distinct self, neatly packaged inside your skin. This is the common sense view, but it is a fundamentally limited one. Alan Watts offered a radical alternative. He famously said that the universe is not a collection of nouns, but a continuous, flowing verb. Reality is not about things that are, but about processes that are happening. Think of a river. When you look at it, you don't just see a noun, water. You are witnessing a verb, the act of flowing. The water is never the same from one moment to the next. It is a constant dance of movement and change. This perspective doesn't just apply to rivers. It applies to everything. A mountain is not a static lump of rock. It is a slow, majestic dance of geological forces, rising and eroding over millennia. A flame is not a thing, but a brilliant process of combustion, constantly consuming and transforming. This is where the feeling of thinking differently begins. You might find it difficult to see hard boundaries where others see them as obvious. You look at your own hand and don't just see a fixed object, but a temporary pattern of cells, energy, and information that has been continuously replacing itself since the day you were born. You are not a fixed, solid self peering out from behind your eyes. Instead, you begin to sense yourself as what Alan Watts described as a whirlpool in the stream of life. A whirlpool is not a thing made of water. It is a behavior that the water is doing. It has a recognizable pattern, a consistency, but at no point is it separate from the river. It is the river whirling. In the same way, you are not a soul trapped in a body. You are an activity that the entire universe is doing. You are a process. This is the deep meaning behind his quote. We do not come into this world. We come out of it, as leaves from a tree. You were not dropped into a pre-existing world as a stranger. You grew out of it, just as a leaf grows from a branch. You are an expression of the cosmos, a temporary pattern through which the universe is experiencing itself. When you feel this, not just intellectually, but in your bones, it changes everything. It dissolves the feeling of being a lonely, isolated ego and replaces it with a sense of being a unique, inseparable part of a magnificent and ongoing event. Sign number 2. You feel like you're behind the eyes rather than in your head. The second sign is a subtle but powerful shift in your sense of self, a feeling that challenges the most fundamental assumption we carry, the location of you. For most people, the default experience is feeling like you are a pilot inside the cockpit of your head, a little self, located behind your eyes and between your ears, looking out at a world that is separate from you. Alan Watts had a name for this. He called it the skin-encapsulated ego, the feeling that we are isolated subjects peering out at a world of foreign objects. But if you think differently, you may have experienced moments where this feeling dissolves. It's not that you feel you are in your head. Instead, you have a profound sense of being behind your eyes, or even more accurately, that the awareness which you are is centered right where everything is happening. The feeling of a tiny, separate controller inside your skull begins to feel like a cramped and unnecessary fiction. Instead of being a passenger in the body, you feel as if you are the entire field of experience, the seeing, the hearing, and the feeling all at once. This is the experience of being not just the experiencer, but the experience itself. In these moments, the rigid boundary between the seer and the seen softens. You are not a self looking at a tree. You are the whole event of tree being seen. The sense of a central commander who owns your thoughts and actions recedes, and what remains is a more spontaneous, flowing participation in life. You are not doing life. Life is happening as you. This is the direct, experiential understanding of Watts's stunning idea. You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. You are not a separate entity that the universe created. You are the universe, temporarily organized into this particular point of view. Your awareness is not something you own. It is something the whole cosmos is doing, right here, right now, as you. When you feel this, even for a fleeting moment, it transforms your relationship with everything. The world is no longer a threat to the fragile ego inside, but a magnificent and ever-unfolding expression of the very same reality that you are. Sign number 3. You find conventional goals deeply unsatisfying. From a young age, we are handed a script. Work hard in school to get into a good college. Work hard in college to get a good job. Work hard at your job to get promotions. Save diligently for a retirement that is decades away. This is the great deferred life plan. The promise that if you sacrifice the present for the future, you will eventually arrive at the destination called happiness. But if you think like Alan Watts, you sense that this entire game is a kind of hoax. He famously compared this relentless pursuit of future rewards to listening to a symphony only for the final chord. If the point of music were simply to get to the end, the entire journey would be a tedious delay. The true joy, the beauty, and the meaning of the music are found in each note as it unfolds. In the same way, a life spent constantly striving for a future prize is a life missed. It is a continuous preparation for a symphony that never actually gets played. This is why the rat race can feel not just difficult, but inherently empty and trapping. The idea of working hard now to enjoy life later feels like a psychological trick, one that ensures you are never fully present and alive in the only moment you ever truly have, which is now. You may feel a profound suspicion towards a culture that glorifies burnout as a badge of honor and views stillness as idleness. This isn't about laziness. It's about a fundamental reevaluation of what constitutes a life well lived. You begin to value the quality of your present experience, the feeling of sunlight on your skin, the engagement in a task for its own sake, the simple joy of connection, more than the abstract, distant promise of a reward. This shift in priority is the essence of Watts's secret. This is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now, and instead of calling it work, realize it is play. When you think differently, you aren't rejecting effort or achievement. You are recontextualizing it. You start to ask not, where is this getting me, but what is the experience of doing this? The goal is no longer a distant finish line to be crossed, but the quality of the dance itself. Life ceases to be a burdensome journey and becomes a fascinating activity to be enjoyed for its own sake, where the doing itself is the destination. The fourth sign of a fundamentally different perception is a revolutionary shift in your relationship with your own mind. For most people, the internal world is a place of identification. We instinctively believe that our thoughts are who we are. A critical thought arises, and we become a critic. An anxious thought appears, and we become anxiety itself. We are so fused with the constant stream of mental chatter that we mistake this river of thoughts for the solid ground of our own being. We are the thinker, trapped inside the thought. Alan Watts offered a powerful alternative. He suggested that we begin to see thoughts not as the core of our identity, but as events that happen to us, much like clouds passing in the sky or sounds reaching our ears. You are not the cloud. You are the sky. You are not the sound. You are the open space in which the sound is heard. This is not a mere intellectual exercise, but a profound practice of disidentification. When an angry thought arises, instead of being swept away by the storm of anger, you can learn to simply notice it. You can say to yourself, "Ah, there is anger," or "there is a story my mind is telling about being wronged." This subtle shift in language marks a monumental shift in consciousness. You are no longer an angry person, but a conscious space in which the temporary weather of anger is passing through. This ability to observe your thoughts without being consumed by them creates a profound and liberating sense of inner space. It is the difference between being standing in a torrential downpour and watching the same storm from the safe, warm shelter of a cabin. The storm may be fierce, but you are not the storm. This is the practical wisdom behind Watts's seemingly absurd statement. Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. You cannot grasp the self because the self is not a thing to be grasped. It is the awareness that precedes all things, including thoughts. When you stop trying to capture and define yourself by your thoughts, you step out of the cramped prison of the ego and into the vast, free expanse of pure awareness. In this space, thoughts lose their tyrannical power. They come and they go, and you remain as the silent, unchanging witness to it all, finally free to experience life directly, without the constant, often painful, commentary of your own mind. The fifth sign of a different way of thinking is a fundamental shift in how you view the very point of existence. We are often burdened by the weighty question, what is the purpose of life? This question implies that life is a means to an end, a task to be completed, or a problem to be solved. We search for some grand, external objective that will finally justify our struggles and grant our lives meaning. But from the perspective of Alan Watts, this is to misunderstand the nature of reality entirely. He proposed that the universe is not a grim, purposeful factory, but a fundamentally playful and artistic process, more akin to music or dance. Consider music. Does a symphony exist for the purpose of reaching the final chord? Of course not. The meaning is in the unfolding of the melody itself, in the journey through its movements. The point is the playing. In the same way, dancing is not a means of getting to a particular spot on the floor. The aim is the dance itself. When you apply this playful lens to life, the frantic search for an ultimate purpose begins to seem like a distraction from the vibrant, living reality right in front of you. You begin to see that life doesn't need an external justification. Its meaning is inherent in the act of living it fully. This is why you may find yourself drawn to activities for the sheer joy of the experience, free from any need for a utilitarian outcome. You might garden not just for the vegetables, but for the feel of the soil and the pleasure of nurturing growth. You might converse not to convey information, but for the spontaneous dance of ideas and connection. You can appreciate the useless beauty of a sunset or the pointless fun of a silly joke, understanding that these are not frivolous distractions, but the very substance of a life well lived. You can even embrace the apparent nonsense and profound mystery of existence, not as a problem to be solved, but as the essential poetry of being. This is the profound simplicity captured in Watts's words. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain, so obvious, and so simple. To think differently is to realize that you are not a mere instrument of a distant goal. You are a participant in a cosmic game, a note in a grand symphony. The goal is not to win or finish, but to participate more richly, more lovingly, and more playfully. When you release the pressure of finding a purpose, you are free to fall in love with the process of life itself, discovering that the ultimate purpose was always hidden in plain sight, in the aliveness of each and every moment. The sixth sign is perhaps the most emotionally resonant, a feeling that strikes at the heart of our deepest existential loneliness. Conventional experience is built upon the subject-object relationship. Here I am inside my skin, and there is the world outside of me. This creates a fundamental sense of separation, a feeling of being a lonely consciousness peering out at a universe of foreign objects. But when you think differently, this separation begins to dissolve. You start to feel, intuitively and directly, that you are not merely in nature, but that you are nature itself. This is not an intellectual belief, but a visceral, felt experience. It's the difference between looking at a tree and being the tree looking. You don't just go for a walk in the forest. You feel as if the forest is walking itself through you. You feel a deep, wordless kinship with animals, not as lower life forms, but as fellow expressions of the same living process. You look at the intricate pattern of tree bark and see the same swirling energy that forms the whorls of your own fingerprint. The boundary between your body and the body of the world becomes porous, then transparent, and you recognize that the air you breathe is the atmosphere of the planet, and the water you drink is the flow of the earth itself. The other, the bird, the rock, the star, ceases to be truly other. This experience is the direct antidote to the illusion of the separate self. It is the realization of Alan Watts's stunning assertion, "You are that vast thing that you see far, far off with great telescopes." The vastness of the galaxies, the complexity of an ecosystem, the silent strength of a mountain, these are not things you are separate from and looking at. They are what you are, on the grandest of scales. You are a localized expression of the same cosmic energy that spins planets and grows forests. Your consciousness is not crammed inside your skull. It is a feature of the universe, momentarily focused through your particular perspective. When you feel this connection, the world is no longer a collection of resources to be exploited or threats to be feared. It is your own extended body. This profound sense of belonging erases alienation and replaces it with a quiet, unshakable sense of being utterly at home in a universe that is, in every conceivable way, you. The seventh, and perhaps most liberating sign that you think differently is your relationship with control. Conventional wisdom teaches that success and security are found through meticulous control, controlling your environment, your future, your emotions, and your image. We are taught to be the stern captains of our ships, fighting against the unpredictable waves of life. Yet, this relentless effort often leads to exhaustion, anxiety, and a feeling of being perpetually at war with reality. Alan Watts pinpointed the fundamental flaw in this approach. The one thing you can never truly control is the controller, your own self. Your thoughts, feelings, and very consciousness arise spontaneously, and trying to forcibly manage the manager is a paradoxical and futile endeavor, like trying to bite your own teeth or lift yourself off the ground. When you perceive the world differently, you begin to see that this struggle for absolute command is not only impossible, but counterproductive. You notice how forcing a conversation often creates tension, how clinging desperately to a relationship suffocates it, and how anxiously obsessing over a future outcome only poisons the present. You see that trying to push the river is not only exhausting, but ineffective. The river flows on regardless. This understanding is not a passive resignation, but the dawn of a more profound intelligence. It is the realization that true power is not found in resistance, but in harmony. It is the difference between a person frantically trying to push their sailboat against the wind and a skilled sailor who trims the sails to cooperate with the wind, harnessing a power far greater than their own muscle. This cultivates a deep, abiding trust in the process of life itself. It is a trust that is not blind, but born from the observed wisdom that life is a flowing, changing process, and that we are an inseparable part of that flow. You begin to let go more easily, not because you are indifferent, but because you understand that clinging to a single note disrupts the entire symphony. You start to embody Watts's advice. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. This is the essence of intelligent surrender, a willing and active participation in the dance of the present moment. It is the unclenching of the fist, allowing the dandelion seed of the moment to be carried on the breeze, trusting that life is not an enemy to be conquered, but a partner to be danced with. In this surrender, you find not weakness, but an immense and unexpected freedom. If you found yourself nodding along to these signs, recognizing a familiar echo in your own experience, please understand this. It is not that you are broken or that you don't fit in. According to the wisdom of Alan Watts, it is quite the opposite. You are beginning to see through the illusion, to perceive the world as it truly is, not as a collection of separate problems to be solved, but as a unified, playful, and ever-changing process. You are, in a very real sense, waking up from the deep hypnosis of social convention. Thinking differently, then, is not a curse or a burden. It is a gift. It is the first, crucial step toward a more authentic, joyful, and liberated way of living. It is an invitation to stop fighting the river and to start flowing with it, to find the profound in the present, and to rediscover the universe not as a cold, external space, but as your own extended body. If this perspective resonated with you, if it felt less like new information and more like a remembering, then we invite you to join this exploration further. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content that delves into philosophy and consciousness, helping to put words to the feelings you already have. We are genuinely curious to know which of these signs you related to the most. Was it seeing the world as a process, or the sense of being the universe looking back at itself? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let's create a conversation around this different way of being. Finally, if you know someone who marches to the beat of a different drum, who sees the world through this unique lens, please share this video with them. Let them know they are not alone, and that their way of seeing is not strange, but a beautiful and valid expression of reality.